Hi, Mary Helen Guest families. It's Mrs. Bruckman. I'm here with Champ. She's visiting us on this beautiful day, and my son Calder. We're going to read the second half of chapter 2, pages 46 through 56. "I'll get the dust mop," said Mrs. Dingley. The dust mop did it. Ribsy did not like being poked with that fuzzy thing, so he backed away. "I've got him!" Zibby was triumphant as she grabbed Ribsy by the hind legs. "Come on, boy," said Mr. Dingley gently as he took hold of Ribsy's hind legs and dragged him out from under the bed. Ribsy, who now had fluffs of dust added to the bubbles, struggled and tried to dig the claws of his front feet into the slippery floor, but Mr. Dingley was too strong for him. The man lifted him and carried him back to the bathroom, where he dropped him, still struggling, into the tub. This time, Ribsy knew he was trapped. He knew he could not scramble out of the slippery tub when he was hemmed in by all these people. He simply stood, dripping and drooping, and waited for whatever was to come next. 8 small hands and 2 large hands began to try to rinse him, but they soon discovered that the bubble bath was not easy to rinse away. The more they rubbed, the more Ribsy foamed. "I'm sorry, old boy," said Mr. Dingley. "This is no way to treat a nice dog like you." At the sound of the sympathetic voice, Ribsy turned a sad face to Mr. Dingley. "We didn't mean to be unkind," said the man. He took a plastic cup and began to pour water over Ribsy. That seemed to work better than trying to rub the bubble bath off, so the girls ran and got cups and doused Ribsy thoroughly. Still, he was not free of bubbles. "I know, the shower!" Mr. Dingley pulled the plug in the tub, drew the shower curtain, reached inside, and turned on the shower. Ribsy was startled to find water falling down on him inside a house. This had often happened out of doors, but never before in a house. It frightened him. Whimpering, he tried to get out, first at one end of the curtain and then the other, and then in the middle where his claws slashed the plastic. "Daddy, don't let him out!" screamed Zibby. Mr. Dingley finally had to duck under the shower curtain and hold Ribsy. "That's all right, boy," he soothed as his shirt became soaked. "We'll have you fixed in no time." Ribsy was reassured and stopped struggling. "With that much bubble bath, he didn't leave a ring around the tub, so we don't have to scrub it," observed Zibby when the ordeal was over and her father had gone off to change into dry clothes. "That's nice, Mrs. Dingley sounded tired. Ribsy shook himself as hard as he could, spraying the girls and the bathroom with drops that smelled of violets. He was soon surrounded by towels and rubbing hands. He did not mind being dried. Henry Huggins had always dried him after a bath, but he did object to smelling like violets. He felt that if he could manage to get free of those hands, to get out of the bathroom, he could run away from the smell. "He's still pretty damp," said Mrs. Dingley, when they grew tired of rubbing Ribsy. Now that the family had a wet dog on its hands, no one knew quite what to do with him. "I wish we had left him on the parking lot where we found him." "I always knew it would be fun to have a dog," said Luann wistfully. "We'd better not let him catch cold," said Zibby. "We might not get a reward for him." "I'll turn up the furnace," said Mr. Dingley, appearing in a dry shirt. "Maybe we can coax him to stand over the heat." But Ribsy, persuaded to the furnace outlet, did not care to stand over it. He did not like breathing hot, dry, violet-scented air. He pulled away from Zibby, who was trying to hold him. Seeing no way to escape from the house, he jumped up on a comfortable chair, as was his habit in the Huggins house when no one was looking, and tried to curl up in the smallest possible space. Mrs. Dingley, who was a very calm woman, was not that calm. "Don't let him lie on that good chair when he's all wet," she said. And her husband pulled the unwilling dog to the floor. "Maybe we could use Mother's hair dryer," suggested Zibby. "We could dry one piece of him at a time, starting with his head." "He would never stand still for that," answered her father. "My, it's warm in here," said Mrs. Dingley. "There must be some way to dry a dog without roasting the whole family." Ribsy tried to jump on the couch and was pulled to the floor. "I know," Mrs. Dingley had an inspiration. "I once read in that pet column in the paper that one way to dry a dog is to take him for a ride in a car with the heater turned on. It seemed like a silly idea at the time, but it just might work. It also might get all the children and the dog out of the house for a while so she could enjoy a little peace and quiet." She was beginning to feel she needed it. The girls all agreed that this sounded like fun. "Can we, Daddy? Please, can we?" they begged. Mr. Dingley was amused. "I guess it wouldn't hurt to give it a try," he conceded. "And I can dry my hair at the same time. Get your jackets on." Mrs. Dingley reached for a mop to start swabbing out the bathroom. And so Ribsy, along with 4 girls and George, was bundled into the station wagon. The windows were closed and the heater turned on. Mr. Dingley drove aimlessly around the neighborhood while the girls petted and consoled the damp dog. As Ribsy began to dry, the windows of the station wagon began to steam. Mr. Dingley wiped the windshield back with the back of his hand so that he could see to drive, and the girls polished their windows with their sleeves. Ribsy tried to curl up on the seat and ignore the whole situation as best he could, but Zibby boosted him to his feet. "You won't dry all over if you lie down," she explained. Gradually, Ribsy, whose hair was medium long except on his ears, where it was short, and on his tail, where it was long, dried. He felt more comfortable, and the mean, hungry flea no longer bothered him. It had been driven off by the bath, or perhaps it was too stunned by its experiences to bite. In some ways, things were better for Ribsy, but in another way they were worse. He still smelled of violets, except that no violets ever smelled that strong. The perfume of violets is sweet and gentle. Ribsy reeked. Luann buried her face in his hair. She inhaled. "You smell pretty, just like flowers." "He must be the cleanest dog in the USA," remarked Zibby. Ribsy's sensitive nose did not care at all for the pretty smell, which was not only unpleasant to him, but made him uneasy. Smelling strongly of violets as he did, he could not smell anything else. A dog depends on his nose to tell him a lot of things, the most important of which is the presence of danger. "He certainly smells strong," said Mr. Dingley. Stop. "Like a whole field of violets." He turned the car toward home, and as he drove, he began to sing. "Sweet violets, sweeter than roses." The girls were delighted. They had never heard this song before. "Sweet violets," they joined in, "sweeter than all the roses." It was a good song for singing at the top of their voices, and that was the way the four girls and their father sang. "Sweet violets, sweeter than all the roses, covered all over from head to toes, covered all over with sweet violets." When they finished the verse, they started all over again. Ribsy did not enjoy the singing. It was just noise to him. He flopped down on the seat and tried to ignore the girls, but he could not. He was too warm. He was surrounded by the unwanted smell, and the girls were too noisy for his sensitive ears. The singers were carried away by the song as they drove into the garage. "Sweet violets," they were singing as loud as they could while they tumbled out of the station wagon. "Sweeter than all the roses." No one remembered to hang on to Ribsy, who knew an opportunity when he saw one. He leaped from the station wagon, slipped past the girls, and burst out of the garage into the damp and the dusk, where he began running as fast as he could run, down the driveway and across the road and across some woodsy vacant lots toward the highway. Behind him, the singing stopped. "He got away!" shrieked Zibby. "Catch him! Catch him!" screamed the younger girls. "Hey, come back here!" called Mr. Dingley. Ribsy paid no attention. His feet were on the asphalt now, and he was going fast, putting as much distance as he could between himself and all those girls and George. The voices grew faint in the distance, but Ribsy kept on running. After a while, he felt safe from the girls, but still he ran, trying to outrun the smell of violets. This he could not do, and when at last he could run no more, he stopped and rolled in the dirt and gravel in a ditch at the edge of the highway, to try to free himself from the hated smell. He rolled and rubbed and wriggled on his back with his 4 feet in the air. Stop. But nothing helped. The smell clung no matter what he did. Panting, exhausted, and hungry, Ribsy lay in the ditch and wondered what to do next. And now it's chapter 3 for your next one. Have a good night.